Hey guys, what's up? Yeah, I'm here with another, I guess you could say overview, if you will, kind of like, update, but just an overview mainly of a very limited comic book series that came out basically about 11 years ago. That's right, 11 years ago. That's when it first was published, about almost 11 years ago. A decade and a half, actually, when you think about it. And it finished up basically a decade ago, about 2 months ago, actually, which would have marked a decade. And it got reprinted basically up until, well, basically it got trade paperback reprints basically up till November of almost a decade ago. It will be a decade in November. So yeah, basically a decade and a half ago, which will be 11 years in December, is when it started, and then 2 months ago marked a decade when the printings for the series ended, when the limitation for it ended, and then we got the trade paperbacks following that a couple of months later, I think in September, and then the other one in November. And of course, what I'm talking about is Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. Now, of course, Chippendale did have, the Rescue Rangers that is, did have a comic book series that ran for about almost 20 issues in the original Disney comics, and I have a majority of those, and I might do a video on those later on. But yeah, I have basically a majority, if not the entire. Actually, let me correct myself: the entire Rescue Rangers comic books of the Disney comic era. Now, basically, almost 20 years later, Boom Studios had, worked out a deal with Disney to publish comic books based on several established Disney IPs, mostly Disney Afternoon IPs. They did some with some of the other Disney properties, like I think they did some for Mickey Mouse, of course. They did some for Uncle Scrooge. And of course, because of Uncle Scrooge, they did some DuckTales and Darkwing Duck. I think they did some Goof Troop, in there, I believe, as well. I think they might have done some Tailspin, not really sure. And of course they did some Gargoyles as well. And I think on top of that, they did several Disney feature film properties as comics, like Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. So they had a working relationship with Disney for a couple of years. And like I said, part of that working relationship allowed them the acquirement of several Disney Afternoon IPs. As I mentioned, Darkwing Duck and DuckTales, if you will, were some very prominent ones that they got a hold of through the especially the Uncle Scrooge stories as well. And one of the other IPs that they did, as a comic book series, and the thing is, like I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of these comic book series were very limited, was of course Rescue Rangers. Each of these comic book series or issues that followed as part of all this were like 8 to 10 issues, depending on the popularity. And Rescue Rangers ran for 8 issues. It didn't do 10 because I think there was just so much that Boom Studios could do at the time, and I don't know if maybe the agreement between Disney and Boom ended. I'm not really sure. But basically, Rescue Rangers got 8 issues out of this. And what's unique about these issues is, in continuity, they actually take place in the realm of the animated series. Not like with the the original Disney comic run, which adapted the To the Rescue story arc, the pilot, if you will, but then went off and did its own thing. The Boom Studio comics actually, from what I could tell, take place in the realm of the animated universe. So basically what we had was, we had issue 1, which was right here. Then we had, I think, issue 2. Then we had, if I can fit it in here, issue 3, right there. And then, to top it off, we had issue 4. So those are the first 4 initial issues of the Rescue Ranger revival by Boom Studios. Again, these all take place within the continuity of the animated series. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the individual issues of 5, 6, 7, and 8 when they continued it, but I made up for that by getting the trade paperback that contains all of them. So yeah, I do have all 8 issues. The only difference is I have the other 8 issues, 5, 6, 7, and 8, right here in this trade paperback. And they did give them each different names. Like this one, 5, 6, 7, and 8, is called Slipping Through the Cracks. And then I think the other one is based on the world adventures that they went on, I think. Let me check that just in case, so I can make sure I don't, goof up, if you will, on that, the coin of phrase. Let's see. Just want to make sure, guys. Just want to double check my information here. Yeah, this one was called, the first trade paperback was called Worldwide Rescue. Okay, it was called Worldwide Rescue. And then, of course, this one that followed was Slipping Through the Cracks. So the first part here, the first half, issues 1, 2, 3, and 4, the arc is called Worldwide Rescue. Well, the second half of it is called Slipping Through the Cracks. Now, what's interesting about this is you actually have, not just the Rescue Rangers in here, you have other characters. So who are those other characters? Well, believe it or not, one of them is Foxglove. That's right, Foxglove actually makes an appearance in these issues. So with that said, let us go down, if you will, via this, which we'll be using as well, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Alrighty, so looking at the issues, like I said, we got the first couple of issues here, and looking through them, basically, here we have issue 1. We have issue 1 here, and again, this is basically, like I said, takes place within the continuity of the animated series. Now, you could definitely tell that, a fan wrote these, because right off the bat, you get more background and history on Gadget and her father, so you get more of a expansion of their history and everything and what they went through. And then here, this right here is like, to me, the telltale sign, if you will, that there's going to be more to these issues than just regular non-connecting stories, like, let's say, being its own continuity, if you will, like, let's say the Disney Comics version was, because look who you have right here. That's right, you have Foxglove involved. And when I saw that, when I and a lot of other fans saw that as part of the promotion, we were like, whoa. That is new. That is something we did not expect to see. Because usually a lot of fans like myself, we would write, stories about Foxglove, in fan fiction or in little web comics, like I mentioned yesterday in a video, the very infamous Of Mice and Mayhem. But we would never expect to see her in something official, something that Disney, gave the thumbs up for, if you know what I mean. But that's what we have. She's in here. She's in here. And the main person behind it, this is the name of the main person right here, Ian Brill. Ian Brill is the main person behind it. And you could tell, honestly, that he is a true Rescue Ranger fan through and through because of the fact that he went all the way with this. So that was pretty cool. So basically, the art, I think, is very, very well done. Very in the style of the show, but more modernized, if you will. And you could tell in a way that it's going to have a bit of a more darker, mature edge to it than normal Rescue Ranger episodes were. Not saying that some of them weren't dark at times. They got dark in certain ways, but not as much as what you could get away with, let's say, in a comic like this. And what's even crazier is you get more expansion on, like I said, not just Gadget's family history and stuff with her dad, but you get the same here with Zipper. And I think that's really cool. I think that's actually pretty cool that you get more of an expansion, with Zipper here and his family. And then you get more, like I said, more elements in here than you normally would. So, and you could definitely, so that to me is a plus. And you could, as I was trying to say, you could definitely tell that this is going to be strongly focused at times, not just on the Rangers themselves, but on Gadget as well. And like I said, you could tell it's a little bit more darker in elements, in ways that you normally wouldn't expect. So then you get the pirates coming back as well, which is really cool. And then of course they had Darkwing Duck that they were working on as their second one of the other titles that they were doing. So there you have issue 1, and then see if I can get it here. Here's issue 2. Now some of these I ended up getting through Mile High Comics. You could just tell by the fact that Mile High would always put like the NM, on the plastic bags that would contain the comics to kind of say, oh, it's in near mint condition. So here we have 2. So here we have issue 2, and this is where she officially, besides the promotional image at the beginning of issue 1, we officially see Foxglove, but we see her in a flashback. So here we have the continuation, the recap of the last issue, and then here we have basically a flashback. I think, yeah, it says earlier. Here we have a flashback, and we get basically an homage. And again, you could tell Ian's a true Rescue Ranger fan, but because we get an homage here to the Rescue Rangers' first NES game, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, like I said, you got Foxglove right here. And then, of course, this is what I was talking about in that one video yesterday. Right here, you could tell that basically they were alluding to the fact that Dale and Foxglove were basically more than just like, good friends, very close friends. So they were more than that. That they had a connection that went beyond that. So that was kind of cool to see. And you can obviously tell that, like I said, Ian being a fan himself, probably was a fan of that relationship. And he probably, like a lot of us, as a fellow fan, saw the potential that Foxglove could bring to the table if she was involved as seen more. But then after that, we go right into present day, present time. And what's interesting about this is the premise of the entire situation. A lot of the animals, certain animals, if you will, go under some kind of spell, hypnotic spell, that causes them to go a little bit feral, if you will. Not necessarily feral, but basically like they don't know, what they're doing. They're not in control of their actions due to the fact that when they snap out of it, it's like complete news to them as to what happened. So here is where things get really interesting. And again, you could tell that this guy is a major fan of Rescue Rangers, because here we have a bunch of bats. I wonder who they're connected to, or where that connection could be, right? So basically, they're going through a similar situation that the pirates did, right? So here you have the Rescue Rangers, basically finding, walking in on this or finding out about this. And then this is where, again, things get really interesting, because they see that where they are. They see they're in a situation where there's bats and everything. And then here's where it gets really deep diving, if you will, into expanding the lore of Rescue Rangers. Because as they are walking, they're trying to be careful and everything, and Dale, of course, being Dale at times, he's trying to make light of things, he's trying to joke around, trying to lighten the mood, right? Well, everybody's getting a little frustrated with him because of that, and they're all saying his name, Monty, Gadget, Chip, but then somebody else says his name, and it's this guy. Now you're wondering, why does he say his name? Aim, right? He's kind of like he knows who he is. Like, he's surprised. Like, he's barely waking up, but when he sees the name, he's like, whoa, wait a minute. Did you guys just say Dale? Like, I think I know that name. I think I know who you're talking about. And we find out here that his name is Inglewood. I think that's the name. Let's see. Yeah, it's Eagle. It's let me see. Sorry about that. I'm trying to see here. Yeah, Eaglewood. Eaglewood. And guess who he's connected to? That's right. Foxglove. He is connected to Foxglove. And how is he connected to Foxglove? Well, if I read this right. Yep. You know how he's connected to Foxglove? He's her dad. That's right. Ian Brill wrote this character into the story wanting to explore the rest of the Rescue Ranger lore, if you know what I mean, or expand on it. And he really obviously was a fan of Foxglove, a fan of Deborah Wally, the late Deborah Wally who did her voice, and said, you know what? I see potential with her. I'm going to expand not just the Rescue Ranger lore, but I'm going to expand her backstory as well. And they do it by having the Rangers encounter, out of nowhere, coincidentally, the father of Dale's on and off girlfriend. Which is pretty cool. And you have to just imagine, how much she cares about Dale if she's willing to let her father, who lives almost on the other side of the world, know about his existence. Like, hey, I'm, into this guy kind of deal, right? Which is kind of cool. And Dale's expression is just like, what in the name? So again, you can tell this kind of has a centric feel to Dale as well as to Gadget. Like I said, the story arc. But then again, we get the situation where all the bats get infected by the sound, right? Get infected by the sound. And what happens is basically, tragedy. Tragedy happens because they're all attacking these humans, and this one human comes prepared with what looks like some kind of poisonous gas or something like that, or some kind of gun. And what happens? Inglewood dies. Inglewood dies, is what it is. And Dale's trying to wondering what, and Dale's trying to call for him and all that. And he's like, we got to go back. He's trying to call for him. And then this part right here is what really kind of gets to you a little bit and kind of gets you an understanding of, Dale has a thing for Foxglove just as she has a thing for him. Because he's trying to find, what Inglewood was. He doesn't want to, accept basically what just happened, but inevitably does. And he wants to tell Inglewood that him and Foxglove are in love, that they're together, they're an item. But he can't because Inglewood is dead. He died. And again, you could definitely tell that this is a darker take on Rescue Rangers in certain elements than what you would see in the show. I mean, yeah, they tried to touch upon it at times, but they never went this far. And we could see, just as we saw at the end of issue 1, who's in control of this entire situation. It is Fat Cat. Fat Cat's the one that's trying to run the show and everything, because he wants to not just conquer the city, but he wants to conquer the world. So, yeah, he's basically the one that's pulling the strings, if you know what I mean, of the entire situation. Now, excuse me, we get over here to issue 3, and again, this is a worldwide adventure that they're going on, because they're going everywhere. And we get another recap. So now they're ending up in the Arctic and everything. And obviously things are a little bit better because, because they're obviously Chip and Dale friends, and and Chip obviously He doesn't want to push Dale a little more than emotionally than what Dale's been through. But here you can see the same thing that happened, with all the other animals where they've been, in the areas they've been, are being infected by that sound. And again, the artwork is just, in my opinion, superb here. It's really just superb. And you really put the characters in various peril situations that, yeah, you would get it in the show, but not to this extent. Not to this extent whatsoever. So, it's really awesome in my opinion. And again, some of these issues, you could definitely tell that this arc here, this portion of the arc here, and then the other arc, are very Dale and Gadget centric. And obviously it tells me that Ian was a fan of the characters themselves. Not just the entire team, but specifically Dale, Gadget, and even Foxglove to an extent, because we see her get involved later on. But like I said, you can definitely tell it's centered around those characters, if you know what I mean. And I'm not just saying it focuses on them entirely. Each character gets a chance to shine. Like Chip gets a chance to shine. Monterey gets a chance to shine. Zipper, of course, here gets a chance to shine. So yeah, it's really, really, really cool and everything that he went all out with this. And then, of course, we get the ending that will lead us into the final, not the final, but, the final issue of this arc, but issue 4 of the 8-issue run. So, yeah, there is issue 3. And then, of course, we have the final part of Worldwide Rescue with issue 4. And again, definitely takes, definitely is one of the more mature takes on the comic and everything. Basically, they recap and everything, what's going on. They recap that the Rangers know it's Fat Cat that's behind it, or behind the situation. And they just, really go all out here, which is, I think, really cool. Again, the animation, not animation, but the comic panels, the art here is really, really, really good, modernized to, pay tribute to the animation of the original show. And then again, like I said, you see all these animals here being infected by that noise and everything, and you have the Rangers battling them off, fighting them off to get the Fat Cat, get to his parents, And what's interesting is his dad is the same design as he was in Parental Guidance Retired, I think, or Parental Parental Guidance Retired, or whatever it was. Parental Distraction or Discretion. Parental Discretion Retired. It's one of those titles. He still looks the same. His mom looks the same from when she showed up at the end of that episode, but the second time we saw his mom, of course, was in that one episode where the buildings were being moved around by moles at the order of Fat Cat. She had a completely different design, but here they kept the design she had at the end of that episode. But again, you can see even like little ants or bugs or whatever trying to prevent them from, getting, certain pieces, a certain key that they need to get to the location where they believe Fat Cat's at, and they do find him, but then he uses a bit of a device to teleport away, if you will. And then he decides to do the one thing he figures he should have done a long time ago, and that's use the machine to turn the Rangers on, on themselves and everything to finally get, his revenge. But it's Monterey, thanks to his love of cheese, that snaps out of it and is able to basically get his friends to, as he yells it out, to stop, if you will. And, of course, they go on to basically beat Fat Cat. And then we find out why Gadget is a central part of this entire thing, too. We find out that this guy here, I think, knew her father and everything, and that she was the only one that would be able to figure out how to disarm, this device and everything, which she does. which she does, and then she even acknowledges it right there. So that's pretty cool and everything. And I know I use that saying a lot. That's pretty cool. And then here, again, just like with Darkwing Duck, they show you a promotional for the DuckTales comic that they did as well. So yeah, there it is, issue 4. And by default, we have all 4 issues of Worldwide Rescue. The first 4 issues of the 8-issue run, which I was totally for when I found out about this. I was like, new Rescue Ranger stuff? Sign me up. You know, especially when it takes place within the continuity of the animated series. Now, with that said, let's move on to Slipping Through the Cracks, which is issues 5, 6, 7, and 8. And basically, this pretty much continues where the others left off. And then here you see what I was talking about by Foxglove being involved in the action. And again, this is very Dale. This has a centric this has basically what I'm trying to say is this has a central focus on Dale and Gadget a lot, but then it also has a focus on the others. And here you could tell that, you know, like I said, it's a continuation from where they left off, because you have the Rangers, you know, coming back from the world tour, if you will. They're coming back. They just got back from the world tour. They're trying to rest, but you know that's not possible when they end up getting a bunch of mail, you know, sent to them that they have left over since they've been gone. They haven't been able to check in anything. And then here's what things get interesting. They encounter a new group that's basically similar to them in a lot of ways. And the group is basically known, because they have to go and save people here. The group is basically known as the Danger Rangers. That's their name. Because you got a couple of characters that show up here. And again, the artwork is tremendous. There's no doubt about that. So here you have the Danger Rangers, and you basically have 2 guys that you could oppose Chip and Dale. You have a girl that can oppose Gadget, and then you have a big guy that can oppose Monterey. But basically, like I said, this is, you know, just a continuation of it, and it's very Dale and Gadget centric, especially as you get later on in the comic. But this is also to establish a new group of characters, like a rival team to the Rangers, which is the Danger Rangers, if you will. And then that's the end of issue 5, and then you get the symbol very similar to Rescue Rangers, which is the Danger Rangers logo. And you get the Rangers logo there. And then we go into issue 6, which continues what left off. You have a couple of crows going after them. And then you have this mysterious guy showing up, very silent, but he's actually somebody else in disguise. He's actually a couple of somebodies, if you will. You know, he's trying to throw them off a little bit. And what happens is they encounter a bunch of ninja porcupines. Well, eventually we'll encounter a bunch of porcupine ninjas. And, you know, so they have to basically put Chip and Dale undercover while they do this. To find out what's going on, to kind of find the truth about what's happening. And it's really intense. It's kind of like an intense moment, intense scenes in here. Which is kind of crazy. Anyway. Yeah, so like I said, you can definitely tell the story's a little bit more darker, aimed at an older audience in a sense. You can definitely see that, if you will. You can definitely see how much darker it is at times. With Chip and Dale, basically they have the cover blown. Chip gets, stabbed, and then this is where it gets interesting because Chip basically like, look, I have an idea. I have a plan to get us out. I have a backup, and he calls somebody to help. He whistles from somebody, and that somebody is Foxglove. That's right, Foxglove shows up. Of course, Dale is glad to see her. Chip gets, stabbed, if you will, or at least cut. And it's a poisonous cut, if you will. So, she has to help them get out of there. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute. I thought she couldn't carry, people more of her, less of her weight or anything, right? Well, we kind of get that later on. And then here we see Gadget. She's trapped somewhere. She doesn't know where she's at. She's in like a little aquarium. And then she ends up going into a certain area, if you will. She escapes, though, but she ends up going into a certain area. And then here we see Foxglove crashing because she can't hold him much longer. And then we get the moment here between both Dale and Foxglove, where Foxglove has to snap Dale out of it, snap Dale back into his senses, if you will, because he's still feeling a little downtrodden because of what happened to Inglewood. But Foxglove's like, look, he knew what he was getting himself into. Basically that, she can't. Basically, she's telling him, look, you can't blame yourself for what happened to Inglewood. He knew what he was getting himself into. Something like that. So it does. So Foxglove basically does help him get back to himself, which is why Chip decided to give, them some time alone. But then Chip notices, that he's not feeling good, and it's all because of him being cut, right on the shoulder, if you will, and it's with a poisonous dart and all that. So here, we see where that Monterey's been captured, thanks to his love for cheese and everything. And then we see Gadget where she's escaped to, and she sees exactly where she's at by just seeing all these pictures of the Rangers and herself and all that. And then that's when she encounters this girl. Her name here is Gadget. I think her name is Gadget. I think. Oh no, Glitcher. It's it's Glitch. Her name is Glitch. So anyway, that's the end of that issue. And then we move on to, I'm assuming, it's the final issue here, where we see them go to the hospital, but it's a hospital within a hospital. And that is where we see the return of another character, where the admitting Chip to be saved, and Dale even says it himself. He's like, hey, he helped rescue you so many times, now you save him. And then that's when we see somebody else show up into the book for the first time since her debut in Adventures in Squirrel Sitting. We have Tammy. That's right, we have Tammy. Tammy comes back. She's a nurse. She got inspired by the team, by Chip, to do something like this. She even, along with Foxglove earlier, encourages Dale, hey, you are a rescue ranger. Chip never gave up on me, and he never gave up on you, kind of deal. So it's kind of cool that we see her back, and we see Foxglove stay behind there as well to kind of watch over things. And this is kind of cool, because who would have thought in an official Disney book, at that time, you would get Foxglove and you would get Tammy. You would normally see this in fan fiction or webcomics, but here you're getting it for real. That is unbelievable. That is truly awesome. So here we get basically more explanation as to what's going on, more plot development, and then we basically get a bit of a history lesson. We find out that Glitch and Gadget were in the same class together, and when Glitch basically explains what's going on, who she kind of truly is, in her connection with Gadget, that's when it kind of dawns on Gadget who she is, and Gadget basically apologizes of not helping her because now she remembers, oh, I know who you are. And then that's when all of a sudden we start seeing a side of Glitch come out to where, you know, she just wanted to be friends with Gadget. She just wanted her help. And then we see exactly who this guy really is. He's a bunch of dung beetles in disguise as they come after Dale and everything, and Monterey and Gadget. And they trap them in this cage with an owl at the orders of the Danger Rangers. And basically they cause the owl to wake up to go attack and try to eat them and kill them, if you will. And they basically find a way to escape. Chip shows up, you know, still wounded and everything, not 100%, brings Foxglove with him, and, you know, they help them escape and everything, which is, I think, is a great moment here, there's no doubt. And then they cause the owl to eventually turn on the bad guys, if you will. And we kind of see, like I say, because we start seeing this earlier on too with Glitch. You know, Glitch is starting to have a bit of a change of heart a little bit, and then of course, you know, Gadget wants to help her out, like welcome her onto the team or something like that. Glitch decides to go her own separate way, and then of course, like I say, they bring, you know, of course the owl basically looks like he's about to. The owl here is going to. Basically, the owl is basically going to take out the Danger Rangers, or what's left of them, if you will. And then we end up back at the hospital where we see all of them together, which I think is a really cool moment. And you get this nice little image here of all the characters, and that's pretty much how it ends. And then you get a look, basically, at the cover gallery. The one thing about the trade paperbacks in any of them is they give you a cover gallery, which I think is cool. So you get not just like the official cover, but you get some of the alternate covers as well. Like here you get cover 5A and 5B, 6A and 6B, which is pretty cool. Then you get 7A and 7B, which is really nice. And then you get 8A and 8B, and then there you go. And then you get a nice little like love letter here from Ian himself, Ian Brill, talking about his love for the Rangers and, you know, why he wanted to do Foxglove and Dale and put them on and off relationship. And then afterwards, you get a little bit of a sneak peek of the IDW DuckTales comic. Not many issues, but you get a sneak peek of it. And overall, it's pretty cool. So overall, it's a pretty nice continuation or closure to the series. And yeah, there, as to quote Zaranyzerak, there we go. All of the issues of the limited 8-issue run of Boom Studios' Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. And to me, like I said, I think it's a great continuation. The artwork is modernized to look, you know, identical to the original animation style of the series, depending on the studio that they hired, with a more modern aesthetic and a redesign or updated design, if you will. I like the fact that it's, as I mentioned, a continuation of the animated series, and I love the fact that it is written by a true Rescue Ranger fan, because if this was written by anybody else, then you wouldn't have the inclusion of Foxglove, you would not have the inclusion of Tammy, and you wouldn't have the stories done the way they are. You wouldn't have more in-depth look at the background and history of Gadget and her father. You wouldn't have the return of Monterey's parents. You wouldn't have Zipper's parents show up. You wouldn't have the introduction of Eaglewood, who is Foxglove's father. You wouldn't have had any of that if somebody else would have wrote this story. So I'm glad they got an actual die-hard Rescue Ranger fan to come in and do this story for the comic book during the run with Boom Studios. Now, like I said, they did do some other books. They did, I think, 2 or 3 Darkwing Duck books, I believe. I think may have been 2 or 3. You correct me in the comments, in the live chat during the premiere if I'm wrong. And they did, I think, 1 or 2, a couple of DuckTale ones. They did a multitude of Mickey Mouse ones and all that. And this was all before they cut ties with Boom Studios and went with IDW. They even did some gargoyle ones, like I said, as well. But like I said, this is, this all took place right before they cut ties and went to IDW, who is now basically the home of any franchise that needs to be comic book adapted into a comic, if you will. But yeah, if you guys can get your hands on these, which I'm pretty sure you can, go to midtowncomics.com, Mile High Comics. You'll be able to find probably these issues individually, as well as you'll be able to find the trade paperbacks, Worldwide Rescue, and Slipping Through the Cracks to order and add to your comic collection, especially if you grew up on the Rescue Rangers like I did. Then I think you'll truly enjoy this, because to me, this is a love letter from one fan to his fellow fans, by basically making it a official continuation, in my opinion, of the animated series. But let me know what your thoughts are down below. How did you feel about the Boom Studios revival of Rescue Rangers? Do you think, in a sense, that basically, let me see if you can see all that. I don't know if you can see all that, if you will. But do you think basically, they should, IDW at least should bring them back in comic book form, maybe with new stories as well? Do you think maybe they should bring on Ian Brill to help out with that? What are your thoughts? How did you feel about, like I said, how did you feel about this overall? If you've read it, let me know down in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to y'all later.